Previously on Chaos Head Noah. I wonder, will every day be like this from now on? Will these fun, peaceful times go on forever? No. Was the sky blurring because of the rain? Because of my tears? His body was enveloped by countless particles of light, and he slowly began to disappear. I reached my hand toward the sky. Somebody, please tell me, just where could that sky of ours have gone? And so it continues. Greetings, my name is Neosekken, and welcome back to my Let's Play of Chaos Head Noah. So, in the last episode, we achieved the Crying Sky ending, and since then, I've come to a decision on which story route I want to pursue next. We're gonna go with Nanami. I am quite curious to learn more about her relationship with Shogun growing up, and see if we can glean any additional story details from her route that we otherwise wouldn't be able to get from the other routes that we've seen so far, or probably will end up seeing after this one. I mean, to me, it makes the most sense when you're just looking at things from an informational gathering perspective. So, in order to save some time for myself, and by extension you guys, I decide I to consult the ending guide that I've been using so far again. And it looks like I don't really have to do much in order to actually set her particular story route up. I just have to make a couple of very specific choices at the very beginning in regards to the delusion triggers, and answer yes and no to a very specific set of yes-no prompts. And if I do all that correctly, then I should be on Nanami's route. Alright, here's our first choice we gotta make. Apparently I'm supposed to make a negative one, so let's put that on here. And I'm kind of curious to know the context behind this particular delusion. I felt bad about turning Misumi-kun down, since he seemed so excited about it, but I really did not want to go. But even though I was trying my hardest to refuse, he just wasn't listening.
そしたら犯人とばったり会っちゃったりしてな。犯人は犯行現場に戻ってくるってよく言うだろ。
Oh yeah, he did briefly, towards the beginning, express interest in actually seeing one of these murders take place, didn't he?
で、次はタクがターゲットにされるんだ。死をもって罪を償い。みたいな。罪状はそうだな。引きこもってたからってことで。
What does this have to do with Nanami's route, I wonder? Oh. This is new. I felt like it should have been obvious to him how much I didn't want to go and see a puddle of blood and gore. It would have been way too much for me. It wouldn't be like a haunted house or a horror movie or something. People had actually died IRL, and the killer was still on the loose. So wherever the murderer is likely to be, I'd have liked to be anywhere but there. Still, I was curious about the murderer. What could have possibly been their motive? To fuck with you. Were they just a psychopath that committed crimes for the hell of it? That was probably the most reasonable explanation. Well, whatever. It didn't really matter to me. I mean, I was a serial killer too. News to me! And even though I'd killed hundreds, people still treat me like a hero. That was an ESO, though. Oh, should have guessed. Just goes to show how much better the 2D world is. Anyway, as I tried my hardest to turn down Misumi-kun's proposal, I imagined myself like a brawler straight out of some fighting game. Don't you mean a beat-em-up? A psycho killer? If I ran into a guy like that, I'd turn him into mincemeat. In my delusions, I could spare or kill anyone I wanted. But the people who actually tried to live out those sort of delusions were idiots. Didn't they know that real-life actions had real-life consequences? Even the new-gen killer would be caught eventually, and then they'd rot in prison for years. Decades, even. Just waiting to be sent to the gallows. If I could say one thing to them, it'd be, what a pity. You really should have just kept your delusions to yourself. Oh. Well, is that a cat? I went out to buy myself some dinner. I took the road I always used to get to my local convenience store. It was only a 3-minute walk from my base. I walked down this dirty alley more times than I could count. But for some reason, walking through it today, I couldn't help but feel as if I'd stepped into another world. The alley was the same as ever, but it felt like it was the first time I'd ever set foot in it. What's more, the stench of rotting garbage was lingering in the air. The moisture in the atmosphere is so thick, if I hadn't known any better, I'd have assumed that it had just been raining. The air was like syrup on my skin. Wait a minute. Oh. That's when I noticed it. There was something on the ground at the far end of the alley.
Huh?
You're not looking at the ground. At first glance, I'd have thought it was a garbage bag from the convenience store, so I kept on walking without paying it any mind. But once I got a bit closer... There you go. I realized what it really was. A dead cat. Blood and feces were pouring out from it. It was such a morbid sight that I had to avert my eyes. A shiver ran down my spine, and goosebumps spread across my skin. I turned around and head back the way I came. Look at the cute little black cat. I want to scratch its chin. But behind me was another cat. A black cat. An alive one. Staring at me with radiant, golden eyes.
なんだよ。
As soon as I spoke, the cat dashed away into the shadows. For some reason I couldn't really explain. I was now feeling really uncomfortable. I figured I should just get going already, but since the dead cat was in the way of my normal route, I decided to take the long way to the store. But just as I was about to head off, I realized something. This whole time, I've been hearing a strange noise coming from somewhere. About time you noticed. With a gulp, I started listening closely. I agree, that did suck. That was just anticlimactic. Pure and simple. Well, just a freaking cat scare. Your imagination's lame. I was sitting behind a computer monitor. I chugged down a cola to quench my thirst, then leaned back in my chair. That was a horrible delusion. All that talk of gory shit must have gone to my head. Whenever someone really got to me like that, I tend to have all sorts of weird delusions about it. Stuff so bad, it surprised even me. And even though they were just delusions, there were still a lot of times where they genuinely affected me and how I was feeling. My imagination was just too powerful for my own good. Especially in cases like these, where I didn't have the full story. Whenever that happened, my mind always went wild, filling in the blanks with all the worst things I could think of. Sometimes it was so terrifying that it actually made me scream. Of course, that'd be fine if I were back at my base, but if I did that in public, I'd attract all sorts of unwanted attention. Okay, here's choice number 2 I have to make.
コーラしかないじゃん。ミルクティーとか用意しといてよ。
It wants me to select a positive delusion, and that to me makes more sense considering it's her route I'm trying to get on. So we want to be positive with the heroine.
知らんがな。
しょうがないな。じゃあコーラもらうね。
Surprise fucking surprise. She went ahead and did as she pleased. There's this thing called permission, you know. She grabbed a bottle of cola from the fridge, one I'd already drank from, no less, and after only a second of hesitation, she cracked it open and gulped it down. Wait a minute, didn't I already see this delusion first time through to 2? Come to think of it. Yep. Alright. Our yes and no prompts. You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and try to guess. I'm gonna try to guess this stuff myself here because the guide tells me that if I set everything up correctly, the story will end up diverging by chapter 6 anyway. And along the way, we'll get some Nanami exclusive segments interspersed throughout the story, leading up to that point. So if I get this right, I'm sure we'll see some new stuff soon enough. But if I get it wrong, then well, I can just reload my save here and then just keep following the guide and make sure I get it right the second time. Don't want to waste too much time. I'm into older sisters, not younger ones. Nope. She's the young one. I like girls with flat chests. Well, she does have one of those, so that's a given. There are 3D girls I like besides Nanami. Nope. I admit it. Nanami is cute. I want to kiss Nanami-tan. Yes. Alright. Since Nanami seemed to want it so much, I'd kiss her. I mean, I was a man after all. And while Nanami wasn't that sexy, I wanted to kiss a real girl for once. Even if it was my little sister. Let the inbreeding commence! Okay. Guess we'll find out soon enough. Well, I guess I might as well see what some of these are too along the way. At least that way, if I ended up somehow getting the whole thing wrong, it won't be a complete waste of time. Was she going to ask for one of my Saratan figures? If so, then she can fuck right off. She had the gall to ask me to part with one of my waifus? Ridiculous. Total insanity. There was nothing anyone could say, and there was no price anyone could pay to make me give up on my Saratan figures. It wasn't fucking happening. If you want one so bad, go buy one yourself. While I was yelling at her in my head, Yua suddenly had a huge fall, landing flat on her rear. Oh no, Humpty Dumpty fell! She rubbed her butt while on the verge of tears. Wait, that's it? That's it? She just falls on her ass after we mentally chide her for wanting one of our figures? That was even more anticlimactic than the last one. Yeah, I might as well just go neutral throughout all of these. This is when we were looking at the bag. I couldn't put my finger on it. I definitely felt like I'd seen them before, but I just couldn't remember where. Was my memory really that bad? I'd always been confident in my memorization skills, and they never failed to help me score well on my tests. I was pretty smart after all. So why were they failing me now, at such an important time? Or at least, what felt like one. Plot contrivance, that's why. A writer's favorite get-out-of-jail-free card. Where? Where had I seen them before? I felt that if I took a closer look at the Jero Froggies, maybe then I'd remember. As for what would happen next, though, I didn't know. But I just wanted to stop feeling so hopelessly lost. So I, almost subconsciously, extended my hand and reached for the bundle of Jero Froggies. Smack. Suddenly, Yua slapped my hand away. Huh? What just happened? We had our hands smacked away, like as though we're the little kid trying to reach across the table for the pepper when we need to ask for permission first from our parents. I was completely dumbfounded. Yua looked away from me, then awkwardly started to get up off the bench. But as she did, her hand hit the 3 Jero Froggies that were hanging from her bag. And, almost as if in slow motion, it all comes tumbling down anyway. Her bag, slowly, fell off the bench and crashed to the ground. Irony, thy name is Yua. You smack my hand away only to end up knocking your bag over yourself and exposing your dirty secrets to me. The bag was unzipped, so all her notebooks and textbooks spilled out onto the ground. And that's that, from the looks of it. Chapter 2. Nothing yet on Nanami. I had to wait 3 hours before my name was finally called. There's the terminal again. It was a different examination room than the one from 4 years ago, but when I stepped inside, I was welcomed with a face I remembered dearly. The doctor was exactly what you'd think of when you imagined a kind old man. His face definitely looked older than most, yet also soft at the same time, and his demeanor only served to emphasize those qualities. He hadn't changed a bit since I'd last seen him 4 years prior. It almost made me wonder if he was physically incapable of getting any older, though I'd never known his actual age in the first place. The desire for me to latch onto him and never let go became stronger and stronger. I could rely on him. He could save me. I felt incredibly happy to see him again. But the first thing that came out of his mouth was,
今日はどうしました?
His voice was indeed gentle and filled with a kindness to calm the hearts of others. However, it didn't carry the same familiarity that it had back when I'd been visiting the hospital regularly. It felt like he was only interacting with me on a purely professional level. So I couldn't help but tell him my name.
西条です。
ん?ああ、これはご丁寧に。高階です。はじめまして。
And you, I'm also going to go neutral.
外出嫌いなのに病院来るなんてすごい。
I agree.
西条さん?
I am amazing.
起きてください。時間ですよ。
Saratan softly placed her hand on my chest and gently rustled me awake. This is kind of thing I've always... I think there's supposed to be a "the" in there somewhere. This is the kind of thing I've always dreamt of. Living together with Saratan. I'd have her wake me up every morning wearing nothing but an apron, complete with a wake-up kiss.
西条さん。
I slowly opened my eyes. Someone was looking down at me from above. I accidentally made eye contact with them. It was the nurse, Hazuki-san. I frantically looked around myself. Just like before, I was lying on the hospital bed. So, everything from when Saratan had started talking to me was just a dream.
おはようございます。
Good morning to you, baby murderer.
結局3時間ぐっすりでしたね。
A full 3 hours. But it felt like I hadn't slept any more than 5 minutes. As I rubbed my eyes in a daze, Hazuki-san glanced at me, before covering her mouth as if she couldn't hold back a smile.
セイラさんって彼女さん?
He wishes.
ずっと寝言でつぶやいていましたから。
Even I could tell that I was going pale. I made one hell of a mistake. How could I have let someone hear my sleep talking? What's more, of all the things I could have said, I'd blurred out Saratan's name. Fuck! So this is despair. I want to die.
でも無遊病の症状は結局出ませんでしたよ。
As she opened the curtain, Hazuki-san conveyed that to me. Yes, this thing. I think I'll not answer anything this time. I wonder what kind of tip I might get if I didn't answer anything at all. Just gonna wait till the next delusion choice presents itself. Yep, we got a couple things here. Gentiana Scabra. Having lived more than twice as long as the 7 other Gigalomaniacs, Neurose's D-Sword has evolved into a far more brutal, distorted form in proportion to the amount of time he has lived. Oh, that's interesting. So their forms can change based on how old the user is. The reason why Neurose's D-Sword has taken on such a hideous form, even without the crucial afflictions, is because it is a manifestation of his negative emotions. And at the root of those emotions are his warped beliefs and sense of justice, his desire to rule over the weak, and his hatred for the world. Yes, he's an edgy boy, we get it. Diagnostic results. You are not delusional in the slightest. Your personality may be a bit too pragmatic, but you lead a very fulfilling life. You're adept at socializing. You have many friends. You've had many romantic relationships, and you're doing very well in work and school. I feel like I'm being condescended to right now. You're most likely living a life in which delusions aren't even necessary. I cannot possibly understand why someone like you would want to play a game like this. For entertainment, of course. Please continue to live your happy, fulfilling life in the 3-dimensional world. I'm sure that there are many fun and exciting things ahead of you. A word from Misumi. Whenever you see someone grinning because they've got some delusion running through their head, don't call them a freak. Instead, treat them like a friend. If you do that, chicks will dig you because they think you're a nice guy, and you'll be even more likable. Is that the reason why you're actually hanging out with Takumi, Misumi? It's because you're using me as a pawn to get more ladies to pay attention to you? You son of a bitch. I gotta reenact a group dive on the group dive murder and have you as the victim. I'll find an even taller skyscraper, too, to boot, to make sure you splatter even more than the victims from the first one did. Make sure every little bit of you goes flying everywhere possible. And then I'll stick sugar and honey on your remains here, so the buzzards and the flies can come eat what's left of you as quickly as possible. Because fuck you, jerk. Neutral time with you two. Before I knew it, I was rushing outside. I ran down the stairs outside Gigante's and crouched down on the bottom step. I tried my hardest to catch my breath and calm down, but to little avail. I really shouldn't have gone in there. My heart was pounding. My entire body was drenched in sweat.
Oi, どうしたんだよ、タク。いきなり飛び出して。
Because I found out how much of a fucking manipulator you really are. Let's get. Hey, seriously, you and me right now. Let's go diving. Skydiving. Misumi-kun had followed me. He sounded upset.
もう出ちまうのかよ。これからさらに盛り上がりそうだったのに。で、どうだよ、フェスは。可愛かったろ。
Cuter than you'll ever be. Without looking up at him, I shook my head. Cared about that. Sure, she was cute, but I wasn't into 3D girls. I made you into... Well, unfortunately for you, you're a liar when it comes to that, and I've made that a guarantee this time around. As was shown in those yes and no prompts from a little bit ago. And more than anything, those lyrics. I hadn't caught everything off, but from the little I'd heard, there was no way they hadn't been talking about the new gen cases. Of course, there was no definitive proof. But Fess definitely knew something. I could feel it. I couldn't tell whether or not she worked for the demon girl, though. The girl, now dyed a brilliant red, looks back from beneath a full moon. But I mean, she looked straight at me. That hadn't been a delusion, and it wasn't a misunderstanding on my part either. There was no doubt about it. Fess looked at me. But what were the emotions swelling in her eyes? What meaning did they hold? Why had her expression looked so painful? I didn't know. Maybe I'd find out if I asked her directly, but that would never happen. I couldn't set foot in that concert venue ever again, let alone speak with Fess.
もう二度と来るもんか。
Wiping the sweat off my forehead, I managed to squeeze out those words. I logged straight on to ESO as soon as I got back from the Phantasm concert. The potato chips I had with me were already soggy, but I couldn't care less. They were surprisingly tasty. What did you do to make them soggy? Cry into them or something? No, seriously, I want to know. How'd you make your chips soggy?
ねえ、ナイトハルト。僕はいつでもお前を見てるんだぞ。
I'm not interested in your romantic confessions right now, my boy. Well, this is a Nanami segment right here, but it was already in the first story route. And the second. Oh, hey, we got something. Nishido Nanami had a spring in her step. Fiddling for her cell phone, she hummed to herself as she walked. Having finally managed to drag her shut-in older brother out of the house and into the world, she had taken him to buy a cell phone. Upon selecting one, and attaching a Gerofroggy strap to it, she had completed her mission, and now she was in a very good mood. It's been so long since I went somewhere with my big bro. It felt so refreshing to her. She was not entirely sure how many times they had gone out together in the past. And when she tried to recall, she found her memories far too hazy. Shogun's fault, I'm sure. As they were siblings, one would think they would spend time together fairly often, but that was not the case for them. Well, nothing wrong with a little date with my brother every now and then, right? It's a good chance to work on that gloomy attitude of his, and hopefully get him to be a bit nicer to us in the process. Who's us? She continued to sort out her thoughts, and while waiting for the light to change at the Scramble Crossing, she took the opportunity to type out an email to her brother. Then, the walk signal flickered on, and the swarm of pedestrians began moving once more. Nanami kept her eyes glued to the screen, letting the flow of the crowd carry her along. That's risky. As one would expect, the flood of people in front of Shibuya Station made writing an email while walking nearly impossible. Distracted, Nanami slammed into the shoulder of a passing middle-aged businessman, nearly knocking him over. Dang, she's a tough one!
すいません。
She bowed her head at the man, received a sharp glare in return, then slipped the phone back in her bag. She figured she should probably stop typing for now. She had plenty of time on the train to do so.
あれ？
Not a moment later, she noticed a familiar face among the human stampede passing through the ticket gate.
あ
Hey, it's Rimi. And in casual clothes, too. And she's clearly not happy to see us. Sakihara Rimi was startled to see the girl who had called her name. She averted her eyes, her demeanor nowhere near as friendly as Nanami's. Paying no mind to this, Nanami closed the distance between them.
リミさん、久しぶりだね。久しぶり。
She seemed strangely distant. Trying to figure out why that might be, Nanami guessed that Rimi might have been waiting on a date. She could say for sure it was not with her brother, though, given how he had left for his home just moments before.
あれからお兄とはどうです？
Given that her brother would rather wallow in his own filth than step out into society, it was easy to imagine he and Rimi did not talk very often. As she thought to herself, Nanami tilted her head. She felt a strange unease regarding the gaps in her memories.
あれからっていつからだっけ？
Rimi didn't say a word. She simply gazed up awkwardly at the Jumbotron displaying Umura Carrera's newest music video. Nanami continued to dig through her memories, to find anything on Rimi, to find anything on her brother's relationship with Rimi. She should have known something. It seemed impossible for her not to. And yet, her search returned fruitless. When she saw Rimi's face, her name came to mind, and she even called it out. However, no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't find a single memory of the girl.
そもそもナナってリミさんといつ知り合ったんだっけ？なんで名前知ってるんだろう？
Uh-oh, she's asking the hard questions. You better think fast, Rimi. Despite her best efforts, it was as if the memory had completely slipped from her grasp. It was not even just on the tip of her tongue. No, everything was a total blank. She was awash with an awful sensation, and for some reason, unfamiliar to her, her chest began to tighten.
やだな、ナナちゃん、忘れるなんて。
As if a switch had been flipped somewhere, the air of apprehensiveness completely vanished as Rimi turned to Nanami, smiling warmly.
私とナナちゃんが知り合ったのはタクを通してでしょ？ほら学校でタクと一緒にいた私を見てナナちゃんが目を丸くしてさ、うわー、お兄に彼女ができた、明日地球が滅びちゃうって。え？あはは、言ったっけ、そんなこと。
Well, that does sound like something you would actually say. Come to think of
言っ
it.
た。あんまりびっくりしてたから、私すごくよく覚えてる。
Now she mentions it, Nanami thought. Maybe I really did say that. Still, part of her insisted that it wasn't true. Not entirely convinced, but not really caring too much at the same time, she decided to forget about it for now.
それでお兄とは最近会ってます？会ってるよ。だってクラスメートだし。でもあんまり学校行ってないんですよね。お兄のお尻蹴っ飛ばしてあげてください。いっつも引きこもってるんだもん。ナナの言うことはちっとも聞いてくれないし。
But wait, Nanami, if he's a butt, then when you ask Rimi to kick your butt brother's butt, are you referring to his butt? Does Takumi actually have two asses? He himself being ass number one? Damn, Takumi. Narose was right about you. You are a monster.
了解。それじゃあナナ帰りますね。遅くなるとお母さんに怒られちゃう。またね。
Excuse me. Nanami waved goodbye to Rimi as she made her way toward the station. She still could not pin down a single memory of that girl, but she also found it strange that, despite the time of day, the girl had been wearing something casual instead of her uniform. Even so, there was much more pressing matter on her mind. Are Rimi and Takumi actually in a relationship? Yeah, no freaking way. Nanami cracked a wry smile at the very idea. Like she once said herself, that would be the end of the world. Well, if that whole scene's any indication, it looks to me like I've set everything up correctly. Guess now it's only just a matter of time of getting to chapter 6 and just letting the whole thing play out from there. Wait a minute. I remembered. I believe there is a version of this delusion I haven't seen yet. It is this one, right? Son of a bitch. No, it's not. Get your feet out of my face, Sana. Let's try this one.
やはり間違いない。お前、私が見えているんだろ。
はい。
She said, you can see me, right? Me, as in the person standing in front of me, Girl B. Suddenly, Girl B's expression twisted in misery, and she crouched down in front of me. With her eyes on the same level as mine, her gaze seemed to almost plead with me.
私、誰にも見つけてもらえなくて、どれだけ声を出しても、誰にも届かなくて、体はすり抜けちゃうし、寒いし。ほら、見て。私、足も透けちゃって。
Oh, I see. So you're a ghost in this one, huh?
自分に何が起きたのか、さっぱりわからなくて。もう、何年も、何十年も、この場所を、さまよっていたような気がする。
Oh, God. Was she a ghost? No, that was ridiculous. I didn't have the power to see ghosts. I didn't have anything even like that.
ずっと探してた。私を見つけてくれる人、ありがとう。ありがとう。お礼に。お前に取り付いてやる。
Interesting. You've got the vampire victim's arm.
答えろ。見えるんだな。ディソードが。え？
When I came back to myself, I couldn't immediately grasp what was going on, leaving me to blankly stare up at Girl B. She wasn't crying. Her legs weren't transparent. And her hands were just normal hands. What the? Had that been a delusion? At any rate, a D-sword. The hell was that? It was the first time I ever heard that word. Girl B had said it was a sword, and whatever she was carrying was definitely shaped like a sword, but why was she asking me if I could see it? Beep beep. See what the neutral is for this one. Naturally, I averted my eyes, so I'd only ever met her gaze for just a second.
見つけて。早く。 剣を。
Suddenly, Fess spoke. Very little energy could be felt from her apathetic tone. I had no idea if those words were directed at me or Misumi-kun.
剣って？
そうすれば君は救われる。
When she finished whispering that what seemed like no one in particular, her eyes returned to the floor, and she began to walk away. She slipped straight past me and entered Class D. Misumi-kun and I watched her go, the two of us completely and utterly lost.
なあ、タグ。
Misumi-kun was clearly sulking. In the end, despite his efforts, Fess hadn't paid any attention to him at all. It must have been pretty rough to have her completely ignore his entire existence. What's wrong, Misumi? Was I not a good enough lure for Fess for you? But I was used to that kind of thing.
俺はここまでプライドをズタズタにされたのは初めてだ。自信なくすぜ。くそ。ちょっと有名人だからって調子乗りやがって。
Wallow in your self-pitying, bitch.
あんな不愛想な女、もう二度と相手にしてやるもんかよ。
Yeah, we all know that's a lie.
あー、うぜえ。だいたい何が剣を見つけろだ。わけわかんねえ。
The sword. Could that possibly be referring to that mic stand thing she'd been using during the concert? Come to think of it, there'd been another person a couple of days ago that interrogated me about a sword. Schmuck! What do we have here? There was no response. But why would there be? Hell, I'd be much more terrified there if there had been...
Eh?
Knock knock! I heard something. Upon hearing it, I immediately whipped around. I'd lost today's no turning around game. There was no one else in the room. Was it just a hallucination? Please be a hallucination. From the bottom of my heart, that was all I hoped for. It came again. It was the sound again. Oh, I bet it's Remy. I couldn't weasel my way out of this. It was the sound of someone knocking on my door from the outside. In other words, someone was here. Practically no human beings ever came to visit me. Even newspaper salesmen wouldn't bother getting up on the roof. All I could think of was... a delivery guy? No, I wasn't supposed to be getting any packages today. Nanami? No. Nanami would be so much more obnoxious. She'd be banging on the door, screaming, "Big bro! Open up!" Making my eardrums bleed. Yua? Chances of that were high. She'd been to my base once before. Had the demon girl order her to come and kill me? Nah, she just came to do it herself. After all, if you want something done right. But if that were true, why would she bother knocking? The knocking sound continued. I was completely frozen in place, trying to figure out what to do. But I couldn't come up with a single good idea that quickly. I started freaking out more and more. Wait, I could just pretend like I wasn't home. Or was that being too cautious? No, there was no such thing right now. Shibuya had gone incredibly dangerous recently, after all. If it was Yua, there was absolutely no way I could let her in. If I did, I'd be pretty much asking to get killed. On a related note, was my door locked? Will you just answer the goddamn door? I stared in the direction of the door, but thanks to the darkness, I couldn't see very well. I slowly got up and tiptoed toward the door, being careful not to make a sound. When I reached the center of the room, I finally knew for sure. The door wasn't locked. Chills assaulted my entire body. My heartbeat increased rapidly, and my anxiety shot up along with it. I'd forgotten to lock my goddamn door. If someone just waltzed right on in now and stabbed me in the back, I would have no right to complain. I had to lock it. Fast. Do something, man! Come on! This knocking is starting to annoy me. If I made a sound, they'd immediately find out that I was just pretending to not be home. But that was far better than letting them get inside. I was about to bolt toward the door when... I accidentally stepped on an empty box lunch that had fallen to the floor. I slipped to an almost comical degree and landed hard on my ass. You mean your ass's ass? The extreme pain made me moan in silent agony. And then, right before my eyes, the door slowly began to open. I didn't know who it was, but whoever had been knocking was now opening the door of their own accord. I tried to get up, but the pain kept my body from listening to me. All I could do was stare with teary eyes as the door opened. The first thing I saw was a hand. The sleeve on it was clearly from a Suume Academy uniform. Next, I saw hair. A little longer than Nanami's, but shorter than Yua's. I didn't know who it was. The hair stirred, and the last thing I saw was a face suddenly peeking into the room.
Konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa. That was when I finally realized who it was. A person I never would have expected. The worst possible plot twist. Feelings of intense despair threatened to steal every bit of hope away from me. The demon girl. I thought it'd be Yua. I never would have thought the demon girl herself would come marching in. Our eyes met. And right as they did, the demon girl smiled with glee. Her smile sent chills down my spine.
もうどうしてすぐ返事してくれないの?
Oh fuck. Oh fuck. Oh fuck. Her hand hidden by the door had to be gripping one of those cross-shaped stakes. It had to be. She'd finally come to kill me. She was gonna kill me as she laughed and laughed in pure ecstasy. It had to be because of the detectives I talked to. She seen me do it for her own clairvoyance. Don't kill me. I tried to scream, but I was too terrified to make a sound.
コロッケ?
Tilting her head neck to the side, the demon girl unleashed a strange incantation. You had a doughy donut to your side! You had a doughy donut to your side! It had to be some demonic tongue. She was cursing me. Apparently demons seem to like doughy donuts. In hopes of getting as much distance as possible from her, I frantically started crawling backward on my ass. Crab walk! My hands slipped countless times on random garbage scattered across the floor as I scrambled for the furthest thing away from her. My computer desk.
ねえ、入っていいかな？
You already opened the door and let yourself in, so why are you asking me?
っていうか、入っちゃいます。
Yeah, thank you. Freaking hate when people do that. When they ask you for permission to do something, but they already go ahead and do it anyway before you have a chance to answer. Pet peeve of mine. Demon Girl began encroaching further upon my territory. She even politely took off her shoes.
お邪魔しちゃった。あ、散らかってても私平気だから気にしないでね。
The door closed. My escape route had been cut off. However, despite what I thought earlier, the demon girl was only carrying a bag. I didn't see anything resembling a deadly weapon. What, you don't think a bag can be a deadly weapon? Wait, that just meant it was inside her bag. It had to be. I had to be extremely careful. The second I let my guard down, she'd swoop in and end me. Or maybe she was already had with that curse she placed upon me a minute ago. In a few days, my entire body would suddenly start spewing blood everywhere, and I'd die right then and there.
頼むよ。殺さないで。
I got down on my hands and knees, cradling my head between my arms. Those goddamn detectives have completely fucked me over.
警察に喋ったこと謝るから。
警察？
それに話してもちっとも信じてもらえてなかったし。
It was a lie meant to buy me some time. The older detective had said he'd guarantee my safety. If he was doing his job properly, he'd had to have sent at least one officer over to my place. Upon thinking that, I suddenly realized I'd given the old man my phone number, but I hadn't given him my address.
石？
Suddenly, the demon girl assumed a pose resembling a salute. And what was just as, if not more strange, was what she'd said. It was almost like a sound effect. Was it another demonic curse? Doi do bishi!
独り言はやめるべし。
No, it was Doi Donut. Doi Donut bishi!
殺さないでとか警察がどうとか私には何のことかさっぱりだよ。
What? Was she trying to play dumb? Or was this a roundabout way of threatening me? In actuality, she was saying, forget the truth. Act as if nothing ever happened? What the hell was she thinking? Hadn't she come here to kill me?
ほら、立てる？立とう。
The demon girl walked toward me and slowly reached out her hand. Her expression was so gentle, and now that I was seeing her up close, she was actually pretty cute. Damn it, I was letting her get to me. Stop acting like a goddamn idiot. Was I seriously calling a demon pretty cute? She was a murderer. She used Yua and Shogun to trap me. Now she'd come to finish me off herself. Don't trust her. I already learned my lesson back with Yua. I never make the same mistake again. I refuse to take her hand. Don't be deceived by this demon girl's smile. She is a demon trying to tempt me. If I gave in to that temptation, I'd die. Trust no one. Don't believe in anything. Don't believe anything anyone says.
だって見たんだ。お前が人を殺してるとこ。
あのさ、タク、それ かなりひどいこと言ってるって気づいてる？まさか殺人犯呼ばわりされるなんてね。ははは。
What was she gonna do with me?
ニュージェネの
Just like with the guy in the fourth case. Was she gonna...
殺すんでしょう。それとも岩とか将軍とかがいる場所に連れてって。
ユア？将軍？誰それ？
Maybe the three of them had decided to work together. That way, I wouldn't be able to fight back when they beat me to death.
そんなのやだ。助けて。
じゃあね、私を殺人犯扱いしなければ助けてあげる。
So that was her true goal.
そんなビビらないでよ。いちいち私がへこむようなリアクションしてくれるよね。
お願いだ。もう二度と誰にも喋らないから。だから見逃して。
もしもーし、タク、ちょっと落ち着こう。
This bitch acting like we were already close or something. Calling me Taku and shit. Wait, actually, how did she know my name? She'd already known it back when we first met at the Crew Fiction crime scene. How? How'd she know it? And also, how did she know where my base was?
当然でしょ。あなたの名前を知ってるのは。
She just read my mind? I knew she was a clairvoyant. She knew my name, my address. All because she used her powers on me.
タクって結構独り言多いよね。前から思ってたことだけど。
Always. How long was she talking? Wait, had I been talking to myself out loud just now? I hadn't been aware of it at all. Was that really true? Had I really been talking to myself out loud? Or was it possible she was just lying to me, and in actuality, she read my mind?
タクの名前を知らないわけないよ。私、物覚えはそんなに良くない方だけど、友達の名前くらい覚えるよ。
Friends?
それともタク、私のことバカにしてる？そりゃ私、テストの点数はそんなに良くないけど、面と向かってそういうこと言われると傷ついちゃうな。
Someone here crazy? Who was it? Me? Her?
もしかして転校生？
そういえば近いうちに転校生が来るらしいよ。スカチン先生が言ってた。
There were two different conversations going on here. My terror from earlier, together with the anxiety of having no idea when I'd get killed, was starting to fade. But rushing in to replace it was a completely new kind of dread, slithering into or slowly erode my mind.
もしもし？その顔はまさか、まだ信じてくれてない？
誰だ？
Who are they? A murderer. A demon girl. That was who.
タクこそクラスメートの顔を覚えてないんだ。ひどー。
Did you say classmate? So we weren't just friends, but classmates too?
でもまあ、しょうがないか。タクはあんまり学校来ないもんね。だからって、私の存在丸ごとなかったことにするのはどうかと思う。ちなみに、名前も忘れちゃってるわけかな。はいはい、そうなのね。ショック。じゃあ、思い出させてあげますよっと。私は、崎畑凛美。リアクションなしか 先はたりみ。思い出した？
I hadn't even heard the name before. Besides, other than Yua, I never met a 3D girl who talked to me like we were this close in my life. And Yua was the demon girl's underling. Wait, that was it. What the girl calling herself Saki Hada was doing right now was exactly the same as what Yua had done. This temptress knew I wasn't used to interacting with 3D girls, so she was attempting to lead me into a trap by behaving all friendly and trying to seduce me. It was the same exact strategy. And the thing is, while I barely remember my classmates' faces at all, and I didn't plan to either, I could say with absolute certainty that I'd never seen this girl's face in the same classroom as me before. Probably. Damn it, I couldn't completely rule it out. After all, whenever I was at school, I was usually glued to my desk until... Come on, can't we just skip this? Most of this is just the same as before.
たく記憶力ゼロ？まあいいや。じゃあ大臣に聞いてみて。大臣だよ、大臣。
え？
She knew Misumi-kun's name? Not only that, but she...
というわけで、はい。
見つけて早く剣を。そうすれば君は救われるわ。
Suddenly, I remembered those words. Oh, what? That's it? That was short.
見つけて早く剣を。
Oh, it's not done.
そうすれば君は救われるわ。
Hello, Nanami. Let's go neutral on you too while we're at it. The scattered whispers grew to murmurs as the transfer student maintained her silence. So, in order to comfort her, the teacher placed his hand on her shoulder.
どうやら折原は緊張しているようだな。よし、挨拶はいい。みんな、この子は折原梢だ。仲良くしてやってくれ。折原、席は一番後ろだ。席についていいぞ。
The transfer student made her way to the back without saying a word, keeping her head low to the ground. Her seat was 4 rows behind mine. Should I pretend to watch her so I could catch a glimpse of the people behind me? Problem was, that I'd draw a lot of unwanted attention to myself. I didn't want any Dokyns trying to pick a fight. Oh, don't go staring at her just because she's cute, or some BS like that. I was at a loss for what to do. Should I look now, or should I wait until class is over? My head still firmly pressed against my desk, I squeezed my fists tightly. Forget it. I was a coward. Just thought that if I turned around, my eyes would meet with that girl's, sends shivers down my spine.
この人似てる。
The transfer student walked right by my seat. Taken aback, I glanced at her face. I then realized that, without even thinking, I'd looked up. Oh, she's holding her D-sword in this scene. The transfer student stopped at my desk, if only for a split second. But she didn't look at me. And in that moment, however, I saw that she was carrying what looked like an enormous slab of raw iron. hell? But when I blinked, the slab of iron was gone. What was that just now? Was my mind playing tricks on me?
同じクラスでよかった。
That was all she said. The transfer students then resumed walking, leaving my desk behind. Has she been talking to me? Why had she been talking to me out of nowhere like that? I was like her. She was happy we were in the same class. Did we know each other? No, definitely not. I'd never seen her before. Unless she meant she was going to tell me she was some childhood friend who I had completely forgotten about until now. Yeah, no. That only happened in Eroge. Was I actually becoming popular after all? Or maybe, could the transfer students be one of the demon girls as underlings? If so, then the demon's net was closing around me even tighter. I was running out of places to hide. Where am I so far? Chapter 3, so I'm halfway to Chapter 6. Who was it? Maybe it really was the police. It couldn't be Misumi-kun or the demon girl. They'd both been right in front of me when I got in the call. So if it wasn't, then the only other possibility would be Yua? But she shouldn't have known my phone number. And besides, there was nothing else for us to talk about. Time to just get over it and listen to it. I examined my surroundings, making sure the demon girl wasn't there. Then I put the phone up to my ear. I wonder what the neutral one's going to look like here. No one's coming out. I tried restlessly looking around the store. No one's coming out. I took out my wallet to make sure I had change. No one's coming out. I picked up the boxed lunch and sat down again, making a small noise. No one's coming out. I couldn't get myself to call out "excuse me" or anything like that. I couldn't even if there was no one there. No one's coming out. I thought about testing to see what would happen if I tried to leave without paying, but then I decided that it wasn't worth the risk of getting arrested. No one's coming out. The employee must have gone to take out the trash. No one's coming out. Or they were checking the inventory in the warehouse out back. No one's coming out. Chapter 4. Neutral with this one too. I should probably say something. Maybe a greeting of some sort? But it wasn't like I ever greeted people normally. It would be even more natural for me to suddenly start doing it out of the blue like that. Maybe I should bring up the transfer student. But it wasn't like I ever chatted with Rimi normally. It would be even more natural for me to suddenly start chatting with her out of the blue like that. I could thank her for the day before yesterday? No, Before I did that, maybe I should apologize for being so rude to her after she'd done so much to help me. I could also ask her about why she'd been there back then. I could ask her if maybe she'd hugged me because she liked me. Or I could ask her about why she was at the site of the crucifixion. No. None of those topics were conversation starters at all. What was I supposed to do? The silence put out more and more pressure on me. I knew I ought to say something, and I knew that it would be awkward to stay silent, but I couldn't force out any words. I hated the 3D world so goddamn much. I was tired of almost choking over just trying to talk. I just wanted to hurry up and go home to my comforting Saratan.
ねえタク
Rimi's voice suddenly broke silence. I jumped in surprise, and a shudder ran through me. I still couldn't look up.
その一昨日はあの後大丈夫だった
Rimi's voice was quiet. I felt her breath faintly on my ear. When I looked up in surprise, I realized that she moved her face really close to mine, and she was now whispering in my ear. Rimi's body was right next to mine. The soft, warm body that hugged me in the middle of that road. My mind was going completely blank. The only thing I could think of was the sensation of Rimi's body against mine.
無事に帰れたかなって結構心配した
I nodded frantically several times.
そっかよかったもうあんな危ないことしちゃダメだぞ
Upon telling me that, Rimi made to leave the classroom. I felt the sudden urge to ask her something. She just said something dangerous like that. I wanted to ask her. Back then, what did it all look like to you? Four chapters in, and we only got one new scene with Nanami. Can't help but feel slightly disappointed. Thought we'd end up getting like maybe one or two more so far. Alright, your turn, Sena. I automatically stopped dead in my tracks. A blatant commanding tone. One that acted as if the train belonged to them. Of course, I had no intention of going inside. I didn't know who she was. I was scared of her, and I was awful at talking to 3D women when alone with them. I didn't want anything to do with her.
入れと言っている
Sena's attitude told me I wasn't allowed to talk back. She hadn't moved a muscle, but I didn't know what she'd do if I showed even the slightest hint of trying to escape. Maybe she was actually a Dokyun. One that would beat up someone without hesitation. That's a delinquent. Talk about scary. But if I showed her even the slightest hint of submissiveness, she'd walk all over me. I had to deal with Dokyun several times up until now. Whenever that happened, the best thing to do was to just run away. It didn't matter if you obeyed them or not. You'd get hurt after they were done with you, no matter what you did. So the best option was to just run away. Let's see if I could find an opening. Suddenly, something from behind pushed me hard. Caught off guard, I was unable to brace my legs, and I toppled clumsily to the ground. Was that you, Kozupi? Stunned, I looked back toward the entrance to see who the hell had pushed me. There were a lot of people outside the train waiting for appointments and whatnot. but I couldn't pinpoint which of them was the culprit. Maybe they had already run away. Why did they felt the need to shove me? Why would someone do something like that? I must have hit my knee when I'd fallen down, as if hurt a little bit. Avoiding eye contact with Sena, I staggered back to my feet. Did I go neutral with this one too? Yeah, I did. Let's do this one too. You're overthinking it, I thought to myself, but I still tried to follow the police officer's movements closely. But maybe I was being too obvious, because the cop looked over once again, and it was clearly directed at me this time. I was the first one to look down. I doubted that I could survive a staring contest against a cop. Had he looked at me for a reason? Or had he just looked at me because I looked at him? Which was it? I didn't know. It could have been either one of those reasons. After waiting a few moments, I looked around and glanced at the officer once again. The cop was still looking at me, so I hurriedly turned my head away in panic. This was bad. I was acting way too suspicious. With you already hunting me down, I couldn't afford to have the police coming after me, too. I had to get out of this somehow. I wiped a cold sweat from my forehead. Still sitting down, I took a textbook out from my bag. I pretended to start reading it, and then I casually looked over to see what the policeman was doing. The police officer brought a black object, likely a police radio, to his mouth. Was he reporting something? But from where I was sitting, the sound of cars passing on the street below me was so loud, I couldn't hear his voice at all. This couldn't have gone any worse. That was what I felt like. Maybe I should just get out of here, I thought to myself, but it was too late for that. If I did anything careless, it would be suicide. If you pretend to read a book, you would have to keep up that pretense for a certain amount of time, or else you'd look suspicious. I had to keep up the act until the cops stopped looking at me. But as I thought that, I realized that figure who'd previously looked like they were heading for the park was instead walking straight toward the policeman. Upon looking at them in the corner of my eyes shot open. Yua. She couldn't possibly have come at a worse time. Cold sweat seeped not only from my forehead, but from my entire body. This was bad. This was really, really bad. It didn't look like Yua had noticed me yet, so I prayed that she would just walk away without doing so. But my prayers went unanswered. For you! After all, the policeman's gaze was still trained on me. It was only natural that Yua, who had ran up to the cop and said something to him, would follow his gaze and lock on to me. I clicked my tongue, tucked my textbook back into my bag, then partially got up. I took a position that would allow me to bolt at any time. You and the policeman exchanged a few words, and then they both looked at me. Don't look at me. Yua then blatantly pointed at me. She was explaining something to the cop. You fucking bitch. You gotta be kidding. You gotta be fucking kidding. This felt like it was enough to make even a high-level person like myself completely snap. Yua was reporting me to the police. And not only that, But she was telling him that nonsensical, delusional bullshit that she pulled out of her goddamn ass. The idea that I was the new gen killer. That may be enough to satisfy you, but just put yourself in my shoes. How would you feel if you got falsely accused? My cries obviously had no way of reaching her. The policeman who had listened to Yua's story began to approach me, his shoulders squared. I stood up. Shit! 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 I was trapped. She was going to ruin my life. What do I do? What should I do? Should I just tell the policeman the truth? That it was all delusion she came up with? I didn't do anything. I was a model citizen. There was no way. That would never work. In this day and age, when given the choice between an otaku freak like me and a wholesome high school girl like Yua, it was fairly obvious who the cops were more likely to believe. There was no way they'd ever take anything I had to say seriously. That was why I had to run away right this instant. The second I thought that, I turned on my heel and broke into a sprint. I crossed the overpass leading toward the stairs to Mijidori. When I got there, I looked behind me and saw a policeman sprinting after me. And not only that, but strangely enough, the man sitting on the bench and even one of the homeless people were right behind him. You've got to be kidding. Had Yua had the police on her side the entire time? Had Miyashita Park been full of undercover detectives the entire time? I had no idea what to do anymore. I had been caught so completely off guard. It was so incredibly unreasonable that I felt like I was about to cry. I hadn't done anything. I hadn't done anything at all. The police were being jerked around by her. This was insane. Wiping away my tears, I rushed down the stairs. I ran down Mijidori, heading straight toward the station without looking at anyone or anything. Next. She was tall, had a great body, and she looked like a model. I was sure she was popular with the guys, too. Oh, so if I just go neutral, she just wears her school uniform, huh? Was Fess wearing her school uniform? Fess was standing right beside me. Fess was also standing on the stairs right in front of me. Two of the same person, in the same place. Completely and utterly flustered, I relentlessly snapped back and forth between the two Fesses over and over again, comparing them. They were exactly the same, right down to their facial features, height, and hairstyles. The only differences were their clothes, and whether or not they were carrying a sword. They weren't twins or anything like that. They didn't just look alike. They were the one and the same. The two Fesses said that at the exact same time. My head started to hurt. What kind of insane phenomenon was this shit? What the hell was happening? How far along am I? Oh, no. I don't want to load. I want to save. Still in chapter 4, huh? Oh, whoops. Whatever.
なぜこの渋谷という場所は若者たちをこんなにも引きつけると思う？
Suddenly, the conversation I was having with Fest transitioned to something completely unrelated.
日本、いいえ、世界を見渡してみてもこんな場所は他になかなかないわ。
Did this have something to do with D-swords? If not, then I didn't care. I had to somehow find a way to get Fest to tell me how to get my hands on a real D-sword.
新宿でも池袋でもなくて渋谷、この街の名前が一人歩きしてしまうくらい。
Both in front of and behind me, the same words were being spoken from the two Fesses at the exact same time. Perfect synchronization. It gave me a somewhat strange feeling. Had Fess split in half? Were both of them the real Fess? Or were both of them imposters?
日本中の人たちに刻まれている若者の街という疑問。なぜかしら。
Why? Well, that has absolutely nothing to do with me.
ファッションの街だから、お店がたくさんあるから、流行の発信者だから、よくテレビに映るから、交通の便がいいから。違うわ、どれ。
The two Fesses paused for a moment. Being watched from both in front and from behind started to make me feel uncomfortable.
大いなる意志、工事存在、もっとわかりやすく言う神による意志なの。
This is bad. My rational side warned me. Could this be? Maybe she was trying to recruit me to some sketchy religious cult. I began to feel uneasy. Man, maybe I should just get the heck out of here. But upon hearing the next thing Fest said to me, I realized I no longer had that option.
理想度をまたその意志による導き。
Chapter 5. Neutral here too. I stood up abruptly, threw my bag over my shoulder, and looked toward the door to the classroom. Oh, look who it is. Only to find her standing there, looking at me. I instinctively screamed. At least half my classmates were still in the classroom. Every one of their icy gazes pierced me at once. Stop it! Run! Don't look at me! Run away. Please, don't look at me. Get out of here! In a pure state of panic, I blew past my classmates and burst out of the classroom via the door Yua wasn't standing at. With no real destination in mind, I found myself in the courtyard. But the second I set foot in it, I was hit by a strong urge to vomit. I tried to hold it back, but it was no use. I fell to my knees and spewed out the contents of my stomach. Disgusting. I wonder what the neutral option here is going to be like.
と
She was lost in thought. She probably didn't have anything in mind yet.
見返りなんていらない。
それって貸してくれないっていうこと？
Rimi's shoulders drooped in disappointment.
そっか、残念。
いや違うよ。見返りなんて必要ないってこと。普通に貸すよ。
タク、ありがとう。
A big smile shot onto her face. She looked incredibly happy. She looked like she was halfway ready to glomp me. I couldn't say I made girls happy very often, so I inadvertently made me happy too. I was glad to have been brave enough to say it.
ビシッ。じゃあ見返りなしで借ります。となれば善は急げ。タクの家にレッツゴー。
That was fairly mundane. Back then, Ayase had cloned herself right before my very eyes. I hadn't witnessed the exact moment when it happened. All I knew was that when I turned around, another Ayase was there. She'd also shown me how she pulled her D-sword out of thin air. It had been neither hallucination nor a delusion. After showing me something like that, there was no way I could still label her as a mental case. However, Ayase had also said this.
これも君の妄想よ。
A strange phenomenon. Had been my delusion coming to fruition?
理想度は力を持つ人の耳しか映らない。君には私の剣が見えているでしょう。それが意味するのは一つだけ。
Maybe that was what Yase had been talking about when she'd mentioned the power. A power that projected delusions into reality. Maybe I had that power. Got another one. I picked up the toy D-sword sitting in the corner of my room. I went to stand in the center of my room and brought my sword to eye level like I was an ESO character. Alright, I just need to picture an image of a sword in my head. Rimi was looking at me. Our eyes met. She was grinning at something. She was grinning at your long shaft. I could feel my face turning red. As per my usual habit, I'd held up the sword as if I were alone in this room. It must have been pretty painful to look at from Rimi's perspective. I want to die. I calmed down and lowered the sword. I was too embarrassed to look at her. I'd rather not dig myself any deeper than I already had. I could only hope that she'd be gracious enough to pretend she hadn't seen it. If she did, I'd be willing to get down on my hands and knees for her. My thoughts were then interrupted by Rimi striking the final blow.
ねえねえ、チャンバラごっこ？
Oof. I shook my head no.
いつもそういうことしてるの？
Once again, I shook my head.
今日が初めて？
This time, I nodded.
チャンバラごっこの相手役、私がしようか？よくわからないけど。
I shook my head vehemently. I'm telling you, I'm not playing samurai.
ねえタク、どうしてこっち見てくれないのかな？
Isn't it obvious? I'm embarrassed, damn it. You saw something you never should have seen. The pure pain and suffering a man underwent when his girlfriend found his porn stash. Must have been comparable to what I was going through right now.
タクってさ、
Oh no. Does she hate me now? I didn't know what I could do. I don't know if I could ever recover from that. I had to clear up the misunderstanding.
かわいいね。
え
かなりキュンときちゃったな。今のは。
Remy was writhing in delight as she tightly hugged a Saratan body pillow that sat on my chair. I thought she was going to make fun of me, but judging from her attitude, she seemed to mean what she'd said. In other words, Remy had just unintentionally mowed over me. Well, apparently someone in this universe thinks you're someone worth mowing over. I guess that's something. I felt relieved. She didn't hate me. Thank goodness. And we got yet another one. And screw your flag. I was at a loss about what to do, so I opted to subtly examine Remy's expression. Come on, sitting like that was cheating. And while she was clearly wearing a miniskirt, she was also holding her knees as she sat, so I can see your panties, Sakihara-san. Actually, depending on the angle, it almost looked like she was completely commando. Against my better judgment, my eyes directed themselves to the home of her thighs. The V-zone. I desperately called forth my rational side to suppress my lust. The way she was sitting, it reminded me of the covering of a classic moe eroge. Titled Free Sister in the limited edition of its anime adaptation, there was an illustration of the heroine sitting exactly as Remy was now. I think one of those boxes labeled Free Kittens. That illustration was irresistibly moe. I even had it as my PC wallpaper for a while.
ねえ、タク。
はい。
Oh god, I was acting suspicious, wasn't I? Though to be fair, a 3D girl was hugging her knees and tilting her head as she looked right at me. What was I supposed to do? Not act suspicious, of course. If she kept acting so cute, I was gonna die of moe overdose. Even though she wasn't even 2D. In contrast to my blatantly libido-fueled thoughts, the words Remy spoke were,
タクは自分の未来を考えたことある？例えば、人を含めて全ての生き物は生きてるだけで何かを傷つけてるんだよ。
She looked deep in thought. Was she trying to say something here?
わかる？
だから
だからね。無理しないでいいからね。
Did she mean I didn't need to force myself to go to school? That I should stop playing ESO beyond what was reasonable? Stop being a total addict? And try to live a healthier lifestyle? Or was she simply implying that I shouldn't hold back whenever I was struck with lust, let my instincts take hold? Well, I doubted it was that last one. Gutter brain. Remy stretched as far as she could, then eagerly rose to her feet. The hem of her skirt fluttered in front of my face.
私、喉乾いてきちゃった。何か飲み物ある？
I stood up and headed toward the fridge. I peeked inside. I had some half-finished cola, but I drunk directly from the bottle, so it probably wouldn't be the best idea to give it to Remy.
ないなら買ってこようかな。コンビニって深センの駅前にあったよね。
I felt Remy stand up behind me.
ちょっと行ってくる。
And off she goes. She gave me a big smile, then left without waiting for my response. Phew. Being alone with a girl really did make me nervous. Especially how Remy sometimes did things to make my heart skip a beat, whether she was aware of it or not. Though in all honesty, she probably wasn't.
くんかくんか
I sucked in the lingering scent in the air. I could sense the remnants of a floral scent wafting through the room. This was the smell of a girl. Remy's smell. Sniff, sniff.
最低だ
I sat in my chair, dejected how low I'd sunk, unable to do anything but cringe at my vulgar deed. It's not as vulgar as a lot of the other things I've seen you think about or do. I should be terrified of Shogun and Yua, but here I was in complete ecstasy. Maybe it was because my mind was preoccupied by the patent and the trial records I'd looked up yesterday. Just one sentence. I think I'm going to go ahead and just end things here for now, and we can continue our journey to getting to Nanami's route proper in the next episode. I know I didn't really have a whole lot to say today, but my excuse is I am kind of tired. But nonetheless, I'm still very invested in the new scenes as they play out. I'm paying close attention. But I really want to know what new information about Shogun and Nanami I could glean from her route. Well, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the latest episode of Chaos Head Noah. And if you did, and you'd like to see more content from me, feel free to hit that like button and subscribe. And I will see you all next time. And hopefully I'll be a lot more awake. Take care.